Have you ever dreamed of retiring early and moving to Paris, France? If so, this is the video for you. Hi, I'm Jice,
And I'm Lynn,
and welcome to our channel,
GenX
Quench.
Quench.
On this channel, we talk about things like pre-retirement, traveling abroad, and potentially being an expat, as well as leaving a legacy.
Yes, so if you are new here, welcome to our channel. If you are one of our regulars, then welcome back. And as always, we hope that you will like, share, and definitely hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any Gen X Quench videos. And boy, do we have a good one for you today.
Yes.
We've got a dear, dear friend with us, and let Jice introduce our special guest for today.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think I met this gentleman, gosh, I want to say in 1989 on the campus of Emory University. He's in the same fraternity as me, and I'll let him introduce himself. Djuan, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Hi, everyone. And I'm excited to be interviewed or talking to my buddy Jason Lynn. As you said, we've known each other for quite some time. And I decided to skip town and move to Paris. So we don't see each other as often as we did before, but nonetheless, distance does not erase friendship. Let's see. I'm a native of Orlando, born and raised in Florida, Florida boy, throughout my entire life. I've spent 33 years with the Disney company, sort of matriculating through that variety of different jobs, operations, finance, hotels, cruise ships, theme parks, um, call centers, RD&Es, you name it. I sort of did the gamut when it comes to operations at Disney. And 5 years ago, I decided to like bounce, as they say, drop the mic and do something completely different. I'm a traveler. I love traveling. It's been my DNA. And so I knew from day one that I was not going to be a person who worked until they were, beyond the retirement age. And so I made that decision. What some people would say early. To me, it was later than I expected, or I really probably would have wanted. But nonetheless, 5 years ago, I moved to a city that I fell in love with multiple times, and that's Paris. And I'm here now. And we'll talk a little bit about the journey. Moving to your place of dreams is not always a dream. It could be a nightmare sometimes too. So it's
Yep,
all
we
it's all
we want to
good.
hear about that because I think a lot of times there is this romanticism about
Yes,
dropping everything, moving across the world, and that type of thing. And we want to hear, and there is a lot of romance associated with that, but it can't. It's
sure.
not all roses. I'm sure there are parts
No.
that caught you off guard, things that you thought would be easy that would be difficult, things that you thought would be difficult that actually were easier than you thought. So yes, let's jump in and talk about all of it.
So,
Yes.
so the first question I've got is, how did your friends and family take it? Because you indicated you always wanted to retire early, a few years later than you anticipated. But once you gave the official word, how did local friends and family take it? Did any of them, try to convince you to not do it, or what? Or at least stay local if you were going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it was strange. So a few people, this is from work, I should say. I'll give you from different angles. A
Okay.
few people from work came up to me and said, "You did it. You actually did it." And I was like, "Yeah." And they said, "You told us this 20 years ago that you would retire at 55." I said, "I did." Like, I don't even remember it, but
Wow.
obviously it was something I said verbally and
Mhm.
had been on my mind for quite some time. So I think I manifested the idea, an early idea later. I've always wanted to be that person to leave at the top of their game.
Mhm.
I'm not sure, you've worked at Disney, and sometimes you're working at a company, and you see that spot that you want, and you're like, that executive is going to be there forever. You need to go. Like, it's my time.
Right.
And so I never wanted to be the guy where people were looking at their watch saying, "You got to go." I wanted to be the person that when I said it, everyone was like in shock and awe, like, "You can't do this. Your career's, at the top of his game." And so I got a lot of those comments. People were pretty amazed that I decided to leave when I did. My family, um, everyone loves the title. Everyone loves to be able to say they're associated with this person and their job.
Hmm.
So that was good. But I don't think anyone ever thought I would live in Orlando I don't think anyone ever thought that that would be I mean, if they really thought, they're like, nah, this guy, he has a whole different pathway.
Right.
Hmm.
So to some degree, I think it probably sealed someone's opinion initially. But
Hmm.
in other positions, I think they're shocked because you are doing well in your career. Everything's going well. And for me, when I made that decision, I thought about it for a while, but
Okay.
once I made it, it was no going back.
Okay.
So when you say a while, as far as like seriously mapping out this retirement, and we both worked at Disney. We have followed your career, and a lot of your career with Disney was not in Orlando. I mean, you traveled the world with your job. And so at what point in that career did you really start seriously mapping out that, okay, it's going to be time? Was it a map out? I mean, did you map it
Yeah,
out, or did you kind of just know and then decide? Was it, how much of it was spontaneous versus all of it being planned?
plan everything.
Okay.
So 3 years prior
Okay.
is when I said, I'm going to do this. And
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
then I sat down and I wrote like literally, on a notepad, probably a
Hmm.
list of like 50 things I had to get done.
Mm.
Uh,
Wow.
so,
Was that
and
personally or professionally or both?
everything,
Mm-hmm.
everything from, okay, you got to sell your house.
Okay.
You gotta sell your car. You gotta make sure your finances are ready. You gotta make
Mm-hmm.
sure, the other one really big thing was, um, what happens when you retire if they come back and offer you the job of your dreams? Are
Wow.
you able to still walk away? And that exact same thing happened to me. I've always wanted to work in Asia. I've always wanted to work in Hong Kong. And literally 6 months after I left, this is when everyone else started coming back. Bob Iger came back, some WDI people came back, and I got approached about going to Hong Kong and being on the succession plan potentially to take over the place. But for me, it was like once I made the decision, I was like, yeah, it's because I did it. I sat down, I did the calculation and said, what if my pay increases by 50%? What if my stock options go up by 100%? What if I do this? I did the math. I was like, this is what my tax implications are going to be. This is how different my life is going to be. And you may or may not know this, but at Disney, when you're an executive, you get long-term incentives,
Okay.
and you get to keep all your long-term incentives if you work beyond the age of 60. If you leave before, you give all that money back. You give all that
Wow.
potential income back. So, and it's a substantial amount.
Right.
So everyone came to me and were like, have you calculated how much you're going to walk away from?
Right.
And I was like, yep. So, no, I think you have to be, the more serious you are, and I talked to other people who had retired,
Mm-hmm.
and I observed people who retired. Like a friend of mine had retired or
Okay.
left Disney, and they struggled to sell their house. They kept their house. It was like 2.5 years on the market, and I was like, oh my God, I can't. I don't want to do that. In hindsight, maybe I should have kept my house,
Mm-hmm.
but creating a simple life. I went from, I don't know if you ever, I can't remember if you guys ever came to my house, but I had like this 6,000 square foot house on the lake in Windermere. I had the fancy BMW i8 with the fancy doors going up. I mean, I had fireworks in my back. I had, epic. I mean, it was a bachelor's pad to the X degree. Um, but I was like, I need simplicity. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
had 15 separate bills a month between the yard guy, the pool guy. I had an aquarium that had a shark that cost me $500 a month.
Wow.
It was 1,000 gallon aquarium. I had, you have a housekeeper, you have your HOA fee. I mean, and I was like, I don't want any of this. I got one
Okay.
bill now. I got one bill I pay. That's it. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was like, yeah, you can make more money, you can do this, but no. So once I figured out how I needed to, and it was a step by step. So I sold my house, moved into an apartment downtown, sold my car. I did everything behind the scenes,
Mm,
and
Okay.
no one knew about it.
Okay.
And then I made one fatal mistake because I found out there was an expat Facebook group in Paris. So I went on to the expat Facebook site in Paris and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about retirement. If anybody has any advice," and people were giving me advice. But what I didn't know was there were Disney people on that. And a friend of mine called me and goes, "What? You're thinking about retirement?" I was like, so I
No.
had to quickly delete that. And
Okay.
she was the two people I knew were really cool about it. And they didn't tell anyone
hmm
because I think depending on what type of company you work for, Disney is a wonderful company. But once people get wind that you are leaving, then it's done.
hmm
Everyone tells you you need to take your career into your own hands. But when
Mhm.
you actually do that,
Right.
it can impact. And who knows? I could have changed my mind. I don't know. So
hmm
it was very important for me to keep that very much quiet until uh, literally I didn't tell my boss. I didn't confirm to my boss until um, probably a month before the announcement. But then I worked for another 4 months once I announced it. So
hmm
Okay. Okay.
That's a good point. That what advice would you give other people as far as like planning an exit that are still working? Because you made up this point as far as like you kept it close. Now, everybody that we're talking to may not be executives in their company or at the C-suite or that type of thing, but from that standpoint of like going on Facebook, we tell people to do research and that type of thing. How do you keep your stuff kind of quiet, but yet
yeah,
do the research publicly? How does that public private? Do you have any advice or tips
yeah.
to the average person or anyone else?
In hindsight, I would say open up a parallel account.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Um, and it doesn't matter who you are, to tell
I
you the
know I would.
truth. I mean, if you want to keep things confidential,
Mm-hmm.
once you go to social media, and that was 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Right.
Now, I
Mhm.
mean,
Right.
it's all over the place. So I would say, I would create because I told no one. I told my family. I didn't tell my family. I told no one. So I didn't want anybody to overreact or underreact until I had all my ducks in the row. Um, so yeah, I would say know that if you go on to a site like, and for some people you don't care, if you don't need to worry about, then
Right.
reach out to those resources. I'd say go on Facebook, look on Instagram. YouTube is awesome.
Mm.
You put in anything, somebody has done it,
Right.
Someone's done
Right.
it.
right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Right.
they'll go through step by step. And I'd also say, because of the world of fact checking is so awful these days, I would say go to three or four choices and blend in information and make sure you
Yep.
got it right.
Right.
Now you got Gemini, ChatGPT, all that
Right.
stuff.
Claude.
But
Right.
Right.
Claude, but even those are still not perfect. So you need to
Mhm.
double check the data that's coming your way. But it's so much more helpful than it was, just 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I've got a question. Since with your career you travel so much, and even when we were in undergrad, you come back to campus and tell us about, hey, I just got back from Japan. Or I just got back from this country. You've traveled to so many countries. One, how many countries have you traveled to? And then what made you decide France was the country you want to actually reside in?
I've been to, and I just did, as a matter of fact, for another thing, I added
Okay.
this up.
Okay.
So 77 countries.
77 countries. Wow.
Uh-huh.
And so I think what happens is, or at least for me, I always felt myself gravitating back to Paris. I've worked here twice in my career. So I was on the opening team at Disneyland Paris. And then I came back and I ran all the hotels. I was VP for hotel operations and all the convention business.
Mhm.
And so throughout my career, I always sort of looked fondly upon my time in Paris. And what I found out was when I was traveling, like if let's say I went to Singapore or if I was going to Italy, I always booked my flights through Paris and I would spend a
Okay.
few days there. So I knew it, but I would tell everyone that, and I've been to Paris many times before leaving here.
Mhm.
And retiring in a city is nothing like being a tourist in a city or
Mhm.
even working in, I worked here for 4 years. So 1 year the first time and then 3 years the second time. And life as a retiree is completely different than those. So
Mhm.
you may fall in love with a city because of the tourism. You may fall in love with a city because you work there, but it's a whole different ball of wax when you're living day to day and having to get to the crime because, at Disney, I just thought everything was easy. I mean, plus as a VP, things just happen to you. I like people
Right.
did stuff. I had people just doing stuff. I was like, yeah, when you get here, you're like, what do I,
Right,
there's no
right.
secretary,
You've
there's
got
no
to
one taking
instigate it
notes.
all on your own.
There's no lawyer going with you to the Department of Immigration. So it's a it's a whole different ball of wax when you're doing it on your own. But I knew
So,
I wanted to. Um, so one of the things I did when I created that list was to decide where, and
mhm.
it was between Hawaii and Paris. I spent almost 4.5 years of my life in Hawaii. I loved it. I built like a great community of friends and family, and the
Mhm.
same thing in Paris. So I think
Mhm.
um, packing up to the move to the city of your dreams is great,
Mhm.
but if you don't have a community or a group of people, I would assume it would get lonely quick. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
so I would say if you have a city that you like, go back, start building that community or whatever you enjoy doing. Figure
Right.
out, is there a volleyball team I can join or a baseball team or
Right.
Mhm.
something.
Right.
So when you went to France, you're making the move, made the decision, sold everything, time to go. You're there on student visa. Talk about that process, the story behind it, as far as like you landing in Paris and the legality of you being there. Kind of, I guess, from a standpoint, was it timed? Is it open ended? The
Yeah.
visa process.
Well, first of all, even though I did a ton of research, I only thought that the student visa was the way to go.
Mm,
Right.
Um, I knew there was an investment visa, but at that time I was like, that's not what I wanted to do.
mhm,
So I applied for the student visa, and so um, and remember, from a student visa, you can be a student in anything. You can
Right.
language, you can take cooking classes, you can take sewing classes. They just have to be approved. So I decided to do the language course.
okay.
And so when I decided to a language course, that school has to be approved by the government. So you have to find a program,
Mhm,
Hmm.
submit that program, get accepted to that program, pay for everything. First, you got to find a program that's acceptable, and then you
Hmm.
got to pay for it. They got to accept you. You got to have your documentation that says, "Look, I've been accepted." And for me, I went to the Sorbonne, which is one of the top schools here. So I
mhm,
was like, I didn't want to leave anything to chance. So
Right. Right.
it's like,
right.
yeah, you could do this other kind of class. Like, no, 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 no. I want to make sure I'm good and I can go from there. So I got my appropriate paperwork. I so and you also can use an agency to help you through it,
Mhm,
but the paperwork is unbelievable.
mhm,
The bureaucracy is unbelievable,
mhm.
but it's preparing you for what life in France will be like anyway, because this is the way things are. So
Right.
if you fail at applying for your visa, it's probably good that you shouldn't be here because
It's a
you
sign of
will
things to come.
decide, and you'll just get frustrated. You'll spend more time saying, "Why do these people do it this way? In the U.S., we do it this way." You gotta leave all that stuff behind, or they'll just
Mhm,
drive you crazy, and just deal with what they have here. So I was on a student visa. I did a long-term visa,
Yep.
long-term student visa.
mhm.
But I made the mistake in the sense that when I read the long-term student visa, I assumed that I had a 1 year long-term visa. But what I didn't realize is that that long-term visa ended when my classes stopped.
Ah,
Ooh.
And so I found out at the end of the second semester, it's done. And I thought I could just hang out.
Okay.
because you had more time to get to the 1 year.
Yeah. Because it
Mhm,
said long-term visa 1 year.
Mhm.
but it said, no, you got to leave on this date. But luckily, England is just 2 hours away by train.
Mhm.
And after Brexit, the UK is completely different. It's
Mhm.
not a part of the EU. So you could just take a train ride over to the EU, stay overnight, and come back. And then you re-enter on a tourist visa. So I was here
Okay.
for 6 months, left for 2 days, came back for 3 months on a tourist visa. Then I had to leave for 3 months. So once your visa
Oh,
ends, you have to leave for 3 months.
Okay.
And then I realized that I didn't even have to do a student visa. There's just what they call a long-term stay visa.
Hmm.
okay.
Doesn't cost the student visa, you have to pay for class. And
Right.
so
Okay.
that's an expense. Like it could be very expensive.
Mhm.
Let me back up. The benefit of a student visa, especially if you don't know anything, is that being a part of the student visa, you automatically become a part of the French healthcare system. So you're
Oh,
automatically enrolled into the healthcare system. You get to go and get all the great, rates, which are fantastic. Even without rates, it's still fantastic.
Okay.
Uh, but that's a big benefit. Long-term stay visa, you have to get private health care, or after a certain number of months, you can actually apply for the French healthcare system.
okay.
So I went back to Orlando 3 months, then I re-entered on a long-term stay visa,
Mhm.
and it was actually quite simple.
Hmm.
And I've been reapplying for my long-term stay visa. This is my third one.
How long does it last? Is it a year or is it
1 year.
okay?
Okay. And you can
1 year.
reapply.
And reapply.
And you reapply. Now that in itself is not, so much. It's only a form,
Hmm.
Hmm.
so it's not complicated. It's just that you have to have proof that you have a place to live,
Okay.
which is weird because like you have to get your landlord to write a note. It's a lot of handwritten stuff. You're like, this jacked up thing, but they just write a little note saying, yes, I want to say that Djuan Rivers or whoever has the right to stay here, blah blah blah. You have to prove that you have finances to support yourself, which is not so much. It's actually like if you can prove that you have more than $1,000 a month, you're
Hmm.
good to go.
Okay.
I think it's actually $700 a month.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Or 700 euros, which is probably $1,000. So let's say $1,000 to be safe. Um, and that's it. And had I known what I know today,
Right.
I would have probably never gone through the Portuguese visa process
Oh, okay.
because the golden visa process is very expensive,
Hmm.
but is also the most flexible of all the visas. So you have to weigh costs with flexibility, um, and the information that you know at the time. I will tell you that rules change in Europe constantly. So
Hmm.
most countries have gotten rid of golden visas.
Hmm.
England, Portugal is in the process of getting rid of it, but they keep changing their minds.
Hmm.
And I think I'm still grandfathered into the original one.
Hmm.
Okay.
But you know, um, so yeah. So that's how the student visa worked technically. Started, left, came back on a long-term stay visa. And I would say unless you're really interested in going to class, which going to language class is actually very beneficial for you. So I would recommend people taking, if even if you're on a long-term stay visa, take a language course so that you can start getting at least the fundamentals of French or whatever language you go into.
That
Yeah.
segues nicely into my next question, which is one, now that you've learned French, is that helping obviously your adjustment to living in Paris? And then two, now that you've been living there for quite a while now, what's the thing that surprised you the most, or what's the most difficult thing in terms of adjusting?
Um, I don't know if you've ever been on a road trip before and your radio's on and you're getting no music. And then as you approach a city, you get static, and
Hmm.
Hmm.
then the music comes in choppy, then
Right.
clear, and then you can hear it clearly. Well,
Mhm.
that's what it's like learning a language in a country that you're living in.
Mhm.
So day one, you're like riding on the subway. You have no idea what people are saying. You're walking.
Right.
People question how do the function. What is it like to be a functional illiterate? Well, go to a
Mhm.
foreign country where you don't speak their language or read
Right.
because you're a functional illiterate. You're doing whatever you need to do, but you really don't understand. But I remember. Being on the subway, and you're like, whatever. But then all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, I can understand what they're saying,
Right. Right.
Or this was before the Olympics. I remember the Grand Palais, which is one of my favorite buildings. It's a hall that was built for the expo, but they had all these signs that were wrapped around it. And I walk past these signs like every day. And all of a sudden you're like, I understand what that means. So I mean, like you really go from like, wow, like what you just go because you're just in your world, enjoying the world, but you're not understanding anything, right? So
Mhm.
once you start understanding and learning, it makes it so much better. I mean, right now, I go to the subway and people stop me and ask me for directions. I'm like, it's a good feeling to. And you said fluent. I'm far from fluent. I mean, like you go to a party with 8 people and you're lost because
Okay.
and different
Okay.
conversations going on. People speaking fast. There's slang. There's idiomatic phrases. There's humor. All of which you don't get. So I still feel kind of isolated when I go to parties. But
Okay.
you just go.
Right. Right.
And people will sometimes go, "Oh, he's an American," but they just talk French. They don't like go to English just because you don't understand them. That's your problem.
Right.
Right.
Um, so I think learning the language is extremely helpful for yourself.
Mhm.
Plus, I mean, like crazy stuff, like you're on the subway, it stops, the lights turn off, and everybody runs out, and you're like, "Well, I need to like you want to know what's going on, right?" So
Right.
Right.
a lot of it's like self-preservation as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
The things that uh, so I think Americans do this a lot too, especially people who don't speak foreign languages. Is that if you're somewhere and you hear someone speaking Spanish or I don't know German or Chinese, you automatically think they're talking about you. So you're
Mhm.
like, why are they talking French around me? Or what? Yeah, people don't trust me. 98% of the times, no one cares about you. They're not talking about you.
Right.
Right.
You
Right.
might be in their pathway of
Mhm.
conversation, but they don't care about you.
Right.
But it feels a lot better when you know that yourself. You
Mhm.
know
Right.
sure that you know they're not if they're talking about if they say the word noir, it means black. You know, they're not talking about you. They're talking about that sign that's around the corner that's black.
Right.
Right.
That kind of
Right.
stuff. So
Mhm.
I think that is really, really helpful. But then there are other cultural nuances that exist here that you still, go like, oh my God, this is so frustrating. But, you know, you're like, I gotta take the good with the bad.
Right. So now that you've been there for a while, what's a typical day in Paris look like for you? How do you spend your time?
Uh, no real typical days, but I will say this, and you guys can can understand this. So for me, I always tell people I worked 33 years with Disney and I got less than 6 hours sleep for 33 years. So in retirement, the first gift I gave myself was 8 hours sleep. So I
Mhm.
get 8 hours sleep every day.
Good.
So unless I'm going to the airport or something.
Mhm.
So if I have a bad night of sleep, I just sleep in. So, so you don't have that agenda unless there's
Mhm.
something on the calendar. And the thing about being in Paris is that you're 6 hours ahead of everyone. So if I'm
Mhm.
having a meeting with someone in the U.S., I can wait. It's not pushing up on
Your sleep time.
my
Right.
sleep time. So I'm really into the markets. So actually, when I left Emory, I got a job as an investment right before coming to Disney. I worked for an investment firm. I got all my investment license. So in
Okay.
my mind, I think I'm a little mini investment guy, even though I'm not. But I still like I like the markets. I like
Mhm.
uh I like studying the markets. I spend probably way too much time on financial news and things of that
Okay.
nature.
Mhm.
I'll wake up, I have and I also was never a coffee drinker until recently.
Mm.
Okay.
And so, I do my little coffee in the morning. I mean, every day I have me a egg toast and avocado and tomato sandwich. So that's kind of like boring stuff. But as you know, I train a lot. I'm big into exercise. So I either will go out for a run in the morning and I train in the afternoon at the gym. Um, the neat thing about being in Paris, and one reason why I chose Paris over Hawaii, is that I bet there's you know, if I wanted to, I could have lunch or drinks or coffee with someone at least twice a week, 3 times a week. I mean,
Okay.
just tons of people come through here.
Mhm.
Luckily for me, you end up over a course of time having people like yourselves gravitate. And so right now there are 4 other Disney execs that have all retired and spend time in Paris.
Ah,
Okay.
So we all sort of, people did different things, like moved to Hong Kong, did this job, moved to Chicago, but, they left Disney, but we're all here at some time. So we often get together. Right now, I'm in the midst of planning a trip to Vietnam. It's like, uh, I've always had people that go, I want to go on a trip with you. So 6 people are signed up to go to Vietnam. And so I said, good luck, get ready, you guys. So we're gonna explore the largest cave system in the world and spend 5 days underground going through rivers and canyons and it should be pretty amazing. So we'll trek through the jungles of Vietnam and then go to Cambodia. I do a lot of pre-planning for trips. Um, yeah, I got so that's a lot of
yeah.
it.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You end up I'll talk about this at the end, but I'm working on a few things. That's
Okay.
fun
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So one of the things you talked about a little bit earlier is you got your student visa, then you switch to the
Long
annual
term.
renewal,
Long
long
term.
term. But you also talked about the golden visa in Portugal. So what drew you to that?
Yeah. How does
Initially?
Portugal fit into this equation?
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
dropped that
So,
little spoiler a little earlier. I said, oh,
right.
come back to it.
So you said when I told you I did some planning. So, I mean,
Mhm.
part of my research was to figure out how do you do this? And so one of the things I subscribe to is this thing called international living. And in reading international living, I learned a lot about all the different visas. And so they kept talking about golden visas, golden visas. And so I started doing my research. And at the time, Spain offered one, Portugal offered one, uh, um, Ireland offered one, Greece,
Mm.
Malta, they all
Malta. Yeah.
sort of have
Mhm.
their own things. But when you start getting to the nuances of each one of them, they're very, very different.
Mhm.
And remember, in the EU operates as one country.
Mhm.
So all you care about is getting residency in one.
One. Right.
You
Right.
don't need, and then once you have that one, you can move freely throughout any of them.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
Okay.
So for me, Portugal, from a tax perspective,
Mhm.
so you gotta ask a lot of serious questions about
Right.
taxes, retirement income.
Mhm.
No one likes to talk about this, but death is a
Mhm.
big one
Mhm.
that you have to worry about when it comes to inheritance laws. Oh my God, crazy laws.
Mhm.
Um, so um, the most flexible of all was Ireland,
Okay.
Mm.
but Ireland was very expensive.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's million euros
Oh
of an
wow.
Mm.
investment.
Mm.
But the benefit was you only have to go one day a year. So literally, you
Oh.
fly in there one day, have coffee, leave, and you
Leave.
got full access to Europe.
Mhm.
The
Okay.
majority of the other ones, Spain, um, the Spanish one, the Greece one, I believe Malta, the requirement also required you have to spend at least 6 months in that country.
Okay.
Mhm.
But the problem with spending 6 months in the country is that you then trip their tax issue. So
Mhm.
now you become a tax citizen.
Excellent. Okay.
And once you become a tax citizen, you have to pay taxes in that country. And even if the country has a reciprocity agreement with the US, which many of them do, or some do, which means that there's no double taxation. So you only pay taxes once. You have to file a tax return there. You have to file a tax return here. You got to submit all your data, all that crap. And I didn't want to, and I knew I liked to travel. So for me to be forced to stay in one place for 6 months all the time was not going to happen.
Right.
Portugal was a nice, reasonable compromise because you only had to stay 7 days a year, and you still have all the rights. And at the time I did it, 7 days a year, 5 days, 5 years of residency. At the end of the 5 years of residency, you can apply for citizenship.
Okay.
So you get to apply for citizenship, and then you have your passport carrying thing.
Right.
And then you got 10 years after that before you have to really worry about other types of taxes. So,
Right.
long time. So, and the cost at the time still, I'll admit to most of the viewers, this is still pricey. But it was still more reasonable than all the others.
Okay.
So I literally got my application in on December 27th, 2021. On January 1st, 2022, the investment rules changed. So for me, it was 350,000 euros, which at the time of the exchange rate was $420,000.
Wow.
The next 3 days, it jumped from 350 to 500,000, which would have been $600,000. So I got mine in. Me and the rest of the world all got ours in at the same time, which really made it a backlog from what they said. So, like I said, had I known about the long-term visa, I wouldn't even have to invest 300,000. It's like no one, I didn't know that. You learn as you go. So, I invested, and so primarily it was about real estate. So people were buying houses, and
Right.
but then you could also do an investment fund. So I decided to do the investment fund route, which was better because fast forward today, everyone who did the real estate are no longer allowed to use that real estate as short-term rentals. So they've changed all that. And
Oh,
so
wow.
now they're stuck with these houses that they thought, I have to show up 7 days a year, use it as an investment income, blah,
Right.
blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So all the other countries were about so you have to pay 500,000 and you have to be there 6 months. And I was like, and then you can also do a donation. You can donate 250,000. Like, what's that? I mean, so in the Caribbean, you hear a lot of golden visas too, but the majority of those are donations. So I think if you're looking at a golden visa, you need to be very careful about what they mean. Is it an investment? Do you get your money back? Is it a donation?
Right.
And they use this money for different things. So you may know that if I'm not mistaken, the Orlando soccer stadium.
Mm-hmm.
So that was built off of golden visa type investments from a lot of Portuguese. So they just pay money. So in your minds and the minds of other people, people call this like a rich person's visa. And so the Portuguese residents, over the last 7 years, Portuguese real estate has more than doubled. So a normal Portuguese person can't afford to buy anything. And so the golden visa was the poster child of, look, these people are coming in, causing
gentrification.
Gentrification, causing rate, and we can't afford anything. When in fact, it's not really the golden visa that's doing it. I mean, the number of people apply for golden visa, like when the year I did, it was like 47. So 47 people aren't causing the entire economy to be, but is enough. But it sounds good in headlines. And so what you'll find out is a lot of countries have gotten rid of it. Ireland has stopped. Spain has stopped. A lot of people are doing the Malta thing, but Malta comes with a host of questions you got to ask yourself closely, and not inexpensive either. Um, but so I decided to do that route because it was the most flexible. And at the time, it was supposed to be the most expeditious. So I thought it was going to be a year. Well, now it's 4 years. The government's been sued by the local folks. They've changed it. So now they're thinking about and so the investment time period was 7 years. At the time, I money up for 7 years. They changed that to 10 years indiscriminately. So now it's 10 years. Uh, the language test that you have to take in order to get your visa, you have to pass. What you'll find out is language courses over here, they're they're by levels. So you're A1, A2, B1, B2, C1. So you have to be able to pass your language class at an A2 level. Now they're changing that to B2. B2 is
More
I'll
difficult.
never get B2. So
Okay.
so the rules keep changing, and no one knows. I call my lawyer every day, not every day, but I'd say at least a couple of times a month for like 4.5 years. They're like, we don't know what's. I'm like, how do you not know?
So your status is just you've put in the paperwork
And the
Yeah.
money.
and the money, but
Oh yeah,
you don't officially have a
no.
visa.
So
Wow.
so 2 weeks ago, I got a call, which was the best thing ever from the Portuguese government, that said you get to come in for your interview firsthand. So after 4 years, finally someone called me. So I went and turned in all my paperwork for my attorney. So you have an attorney, you do all your biometrics, you get fingerprinted, recognition, everything. They know who you are. So you're in the system. So now I'm technically waiting for my card.
Hard. Okay.
So once I get my card, I'm official.
Okay.
Okay.
But I have a sheet of paper that has a stamp on it. So if I go in and out, so as I said, I applied for my 1 year visa here in Paris, expired January 15th.
Okay.
So technically, I'm on what they would call a tourist visa now.
Okay.
So 3 months from that expires. And technically, I have to leave for 3 months. But now that I have my Portuguese paperwork, technically, I should be able to show them this paperwork.
Okay.
And they go, you're legit. So it's
Because you can
confusing.
go anywhere in
the
Europe.
EU.
That the whole point of the Portuguese having that means that you can go anywhere in the EU and stay indefinitely.
Well, the visa gets reapplied, gets updated every year, but
Right.
technically, it's
Yeah.
like, so, at the end of 5 years, technically, if
Right.
the rules don't change, I could apply for citizenship,
Citizenship. Right.
or I would just stay on as a resident, which is what I would do. I don't want to
Just
be
do the rest.
actual citizenship.
Citizens. Right.
So like everyone talks about having a dual citizenship. I'm getting out of this place. I'm gonna get my citizenship. You need to be very, very careful on what that means. So let me just give you a very practical situation. So this is not to be political at all. So no one should think this. So whether you love the man or hate the man, President Trump, he changed inheritance laws in the U.S. so that you can leave behind up to $15 million to your heirs tax free. And if you're a married couple, you guys give away 30 million. So hey,
Family don't expect 30 million.
You got that, Giants. I see that. I see that bowl back there. It's all full of Bitcoin. But in France, for instance, you can only leave 100,000, and anything above that gets taxed at 60%.
Wow.
Wow.
So if I'm living in France, and let's say I get hit by a bus tomorrow, the French law stretches worldwide, just like U.S. taxes are world. You can't hide from the U.S. government no matter where you go. You got to pay your taxes to the
Right.
U.S. government, unless you give up your citizenship, which means you have to pay an exit tax, which is a whole bunch of things. So French law, if you become a French citizen, you get citizenship here, or if you're a tax resident, you just have to be a tax resident or citizenship. If I were to die tomorrow, uh, the French government and my house, I own two houses in Orlando.
Mhm.
One's my mom, one's my dad. They would have to pay the French government 60% of the value of that house.
Wow.
Whoa.
Any cash I have, any of your securities, stocks, or bonds, 60% goes to the French government. So if you got your little nest egg and you stash away your $1 million and you're like, okay, I'm gonna leave this to my heirs, give them something, they're going to get a whole lot less than you would expect.
Right.
Annuities are different though. So like I have a Disney pension. My
Mhm.
Disney pension is not taxed at 60%. That's just his tax at normal income. So I can give that to somebody and
Mhm.
it's not taxed. So every country is very different. And so you might think it's great, but you may be inadvertently putting your potential heirs
Right.
into financial, like who has 60% of,
Right.
say think about you left your house someone, they got to pay 60% before it gets all, and it doesn't matter if you have a trust, if you have
Wow.
estate, none of that, none of that matters,
Mhm.
estate planning, nothing. It goes, it supersedes all of that. So and every country is very different. So I would say understand, number one, the tax implications of what it means to go there.
Mhm.
And it changes if you have a job, if you're not working, if you're going to be a digital nomad. Like if you guys were to go there and you're working remotely and you're making money, you're having an income, then whatever country you go to, you got to really ask questions about
Mhm.
taxes. What happens if if you are there and God forbid something happens to one of you?
Right.
How does your retirement, Social Security, your investments, what happens to that? Are you now, owing the
Right.
government,
Right. As a surviving spouse, what
as
does
a
that mean?
surviving
Right.
spouse?
Right.
And it may seem weird from an American perspective, but remember when you're in Europe, the social system here is so incredible. So the government has taken care of you all your life.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
medication that costs $300 costs you €3 here. A
Mhm.
medical procedure that costs 50,000 in the US costs you $1,500 here. So, how everything is taken care of. So, when you pass on, you got to pay back the
Pay
piper,
back.
Right.
And so, and I think Spain is even more onerous. I mean, so you got to understand what that means. So I'm not sure what Mexico or Panama, all those places in Latin
Mhm.
America are, but it's just something you want to ask. Don't just, no one thinks they're going to die,
Right. Right.
but in the end of the day, you
Yeah.
can't not be oblivious to it because somebody's going to have to deal with it at some point.
Right.
Mhm.
So understand that.
Wow. What a journey.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
It's
That raised
it's
my
been,
eyebrows.
Right. Right.
yeah,
But
because
it
you.
sounds like the lights at the end of the tunnel. It's
Oh yeah,
coming.
yeah. So so for me, I've been doing two things. I've been doing this Portuguese visa thinking it's going to come, but every year I have applied for my long-term stay visa, which is, thank God I did because 4 years it never showed up.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I still have my 1 year. I got approved for my 1 year visa again in France. I'm just waiting to go in and get my card. So you get
Okay.
like yeah. So, but I am good for another year from January 15th.
Okay. So that's good. Yeah. Is there a number of times, a limit to how many times you can reapply?
I
Wow.
don't think so. Well, here's what happened was, so yeah, depending on what visa you apply for, you have to return to the US to reapply for it. So when I did my
Oh,
student when I did my student visa and
Mhm.
I came on my tourist visa, I had to return to the US for 3 months.
Mhm.
When I went into the consulate office in Miami, had all my paperwork done, she handed me a sheet of paper and she's like, I can't help you with this. you have to make the decision. And there were two boxes, and one said that I want the visa that allows me to remain in France and apply for the visa in France.
Mhm.
And the other one said I'm going to apply for the visa that requires me to come back to the US to do it. And in my mind, I'm like, well, that's a stupid choice.
Mhm.
Like why wouldn't everyone choose the let me stay where I am?
Right.
So that's one I checked. But honestly, I don't know whether that meant that, you can only do this 5 times, whatever.
Mhm.
But no one's given me any limitations at all. And I chose the one where I can reapply from here, so I do that. And I'm careful enough not to. I avoid being a tax resident in France, so I'm traveling, so I'm not here more than 6 months a year.
Mhm.
But I don't want to have to be here. I don't want to be limited to just 90 days and then have to
Right.
leave
Right.
for 3 months
Right.
versus, yeah, I mean,
Right.
that's the case.
Yep.
So,
All right. So I've got a question, Djuan. So you're known as an adrenaline junkie. You used to tell us about all these different adventures you would do when you were on vacation from Disney, from climbing up almost like a parallel cliff to climbing mountains to I think the most daring video I saw you do was when you got on the plane, like the Red Baron plane, and were on the
yeah,
top of it as it was flying, not on the ground,
Wing
people.
walking.
Yeah, wing
yeah,
walking.
wing walking.
So, what's the most daring thing you've done, I guess, since retirement, or has retirement made you more conservative? I guess I would say,
Or bolder.
or bolder. Yeah.
Retirement makes you bolder because,
Okay.
like, you don't have a company. I mean, when I was at Disney, people go like, "Where are you going?" Like,
What are you
they give you a
doing?
little
Yeah.
side eye. Like we've
Yeah,
invested too
making sure
much
you
in
come
you,
back
right?
in a week in whole in one piece.
Figuring out the
Right,
succession
right.
plan if you don't
I
want.
mean, I remember when I worked at what used to be downtown Disney Springs.
Mhm.
We were having a ton of problems, and they were trying to shut down Pleasure Island because of some of the challenges we were having. And I was on my way to Russia to climb Mount Elbrus, and I'm on the phone with Meg Crofton going, "Wait, don't do anything. My team is there. I'm going to be on the mountain for the next 10 days, but when I get back, I'm coming out." And they're like, "You're going to be in Russia?" Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'll be back. So you don't have to do those kind of explanations anymore.
Mhm.
The most daring thing is the plane, the wing walking. So officially retired like May 4th,
Okay.
and I did the wing walk in the following month. So I was like,
Okay. Okay.
I'm, and as I figure as you get older, you got less time to worry. I'm pushing it, man. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
Everybody else is trying to preserve life. I'm like, yeah, I'm about, and I'm very safe too.
Right.
Some people don't think it's safe, but I only do things that are very safe. But I do believe that life is meant to be lived,
Right.
Mhm.
and at some point, you're not going to be able to do certain things. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
the
Right.
reality of my age is it catches up with you.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so I know when I'm 85 years old, I may or may not be able to I'm going to be doing something, but I
Right.
may not be able to do that. So I'm trying to, do as much as I can while I can, and I'm
Mhm.
physically healthy. So, yeah.
So, what is on that bucket list? What's a destination or an activity that you haven't done yet that you want to do? Might be intimidating or whatever, but yeah, what's on the list? Is there anything that, or are you still just open to the journey and exploration?
I mean, a little bit of both. A lot of times I discover stuff as I go. So I'm sure there's some things I haven't discovered yet.
Mm-hmm.
But place of the world that I have not been to yet, and it's just been dangerous, are the countries that end in stan, like Pakistan,
Mhm.
Uzbekistan. So there is a mountain range in northern Pakistan that I really, really want to go through, and some friends did it a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm gonna this cave thing I'm going in May is been on the list, so I'm gonna definitely do that really, really soon. Um, there is um, there's a diving experience that you can do off the coast of Tonga with these giant blue whales. And
Mm.
so I tried to do it last year, but they were completely booked up. And then the guy said, "Well, that in Norway, you can actually swim and dive with orcas and blue whales. I'm like, wow.
Whoa. Right.
I may try and squeeze that in as well. The biggest dream is, going to space. I definitely want to do one of the
Wow.
uh, space flights,
Space
the commercial
ventures.
flights. Yeah, yeah.
That would be
I got my
cool.
little piggy bank going, man.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Let's
So,
see. Now that you've retired, have you gotten away from the whole title? Oh yeah, I'm no longer an exec. We hear some people go through that in retirement where they're so defined by what they did that it's tough transition into, hey,
Right.
I'm just a retiree.
Yeah. What's your identity?
Yeah, what's your identity as a retiree?
yeah, the beauty of living in a foreign country is like no one cares who you are.
Mm.
Okay.
No one knows your title. You just exist. So you quickly have to redefine yourself. And even if you want to tell someone, they don't know, they probably don't speak English and you don't speak Spanish, who are you gonna tell? So
Hmm.
you really people have to know you for who you are today. Like, what are you
Okay.
contributing to my life? Are you a good human? Are you helping out in any way? You just can't brag about your past. And in a lot of uh, countries in Europe, people, everyday people, don't talk about that stuff.
Hmm.
Okay.
It's actually frowned upon. People don't talk about money. People don't talk about status. Um, but there's this uh, what's the word? Like a codependency relationship. So I feel like there's this like codependency relationship. Like people don't like it about leadership, but at the same time they love like this um, sort of over what word am I looking for? Like the monarchy, for instance. People like they not only be subjugated to it, but it's there's a hierarchical thing here more so
Right.
Hmm.
in the US,
Hmm.
especially more so at Disney. And I'll give an example. So when I was at taking classes at the Sorbonne, no one knew who I was. I was just, you know, another guy in the class taking French. And then first semester was over with, no problem. Second semester, and no, this happened first. This happened first semester. I'm sorry. Um, I go to class one day, and I walk in the building, and the security guard goes, "Oh, I mean, the security guard treated me differently." He's like, "Yes, sir." I'm like, I go to class, and people in class were like, I just felt weird. I was like,
Hmm.
Hmm.
what is like? Then I later found out that someone found my Wikipedia page, and then they found out my background,
Uh-huh.
Okay.
and then one day, I don't know if you know this, but did you know I bought a Triceratop dinosaur? You're looking at
Dinosaur.
you're looking at the guy that bought the most expensive Triceratop ever sold.
Fun fact.
Is
Seven,
it in a museum
seven,
somewhere?
$7 million. It's actually near you in Tampa at the Children's Museum. If you go there, it's called Big
Oh,
John.
okay. Okay.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's you.
Google Djuan Rivers
Okay.
dinosaur. Bam. So a friend of mine, not me, obviously, but a friend of mine wanted it. And uh, I was living in Paris. The auction house was here. And he's like, "Do you mind buying it for me?" And I was like, "I'd love to go and participate in it. Ain't my money, right?" So literally between so I go to class from 8 until 12, and then I take a break from 12 until 2, and I went back from 2 to 5. So on my lunch break, I go down to the auction house. And what made this really special was that they did a documentary on it. I mean, ton of
Okay.
media. So
Yeah.
you can go on Netflix now and type in Big John, and you'll see me, and they interview me like it's crazy. So
Okay.
um, I bought a dinosaur, and so this hit big news in France. It was on TV, it was everywhere. And then at the end, like 50 members of the media all come up to me with microphones, and they're asking me like, "What is this? And why are you doing this?" And and I had thank God for Disney media training.
Right, right,
I was able to answer their questions, and yeah, it was good. So a few people saw that on television,
Okay.
and then people just jump to conclusions. They see
right.
Right.
the Wikipedia page, they see that, and they're like, "Oh, who's this guy?" So
Right.
then I was just like, it was just weird. I went to class, and literally it was overnight. I went to class, and everyone treated me differently. So, one reason I think I kept it all quiet is you don't want people to see you
Right.
differently. You just want to be a
Yeah,
A
normal.
student,
classmate. Yeah.
classmate,
I want to be a
studying
classmate.
French. Right.
Yeah. Then all the students were asking me about career advice, and now I'm everyone's mentor,
Right, right.
which is fun.
So,
That was fun,
leading to
but
that, as we're bringing this to a close, this has been wonderful and fascinating, and I'm learning stuff that I didn't know about you. But if a 40-year-old, 45-year-old, I'd even say a 50-year-old is watching this and says, I want to do what Djuan's doing, and maybe it's not the level, what is the first step that you would tell them to take as far as making this transition to
Retiring early.
retiring early and living this life that you are living right now, and somebody's like, "Ooh, I want to do my version of that." What's the first
yeah,
step?
I would say, I mean, first of all, I love the you may have heard this, always run towards something, not away from something. Like, don't say you're doing this because I hate my job, my boss sucks, my company's awful. Do it because you're looking to do something. Run towards what you want to
That's
accomplish.
good.
So
Right.
first thing. So first of all, find out what that is. Like,
Right.
what are you passionate about? I mean, I worked forever, and the only thing that was consistently passionate that I liked was I knew I was going to travel. I'd love to
Right.
travel, so that was going to be my passion. But some person's passion might be crocheting. Some people like biking. Some people like cooking. Some people,
Right.
Right.
oh my God, I want to become a sculptor. Whatever that is, do your research on it, become really fascinated with it, understand what all the possibilities of what you want to do uh, um, can actually materialize and become, and ask a lot of questions. I mean, right now, go on YouTube,
Right.
research whatever it is about retirement, and then I honestly created a list and I wrote everything down, and I was checking things off, and I think that's helpful.
Right.
Um, I think you asked one of the things that you haven't asked the question yet, but one of the things that I saw was a lot of people think they don't have enough money,
Yep.
and so like, what do you do with if you think you don't have enough money? So I like to answer that question by saying you will never think you have enough money.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
If you got 1 million, you think you need two.
Yeah.
Right.
You
If you
got
got two,
10,
you
you
think you
think you
need
need.
five, you think you need 20, 30. So
Right.
first of all, you're never going to have enough. So don't get so caught up into that. But number two, you also just don't want to just quit and think you can survive off of, you got $200,000 in the bank and you go, oh, I'm going to retire.
Right.
That's
Not
that's
realistic.
not
Right.
realistic either.
Mhm.
So I think first of all is really understand what your passions are and why do you become intimately aware of spending, and why do you spend what you spend, and what do you
Yeah.
really need to spend your money on. And remember, when you retire, you are no longer saving. It's also just as difficult to stop being so miserly and
Right.
stop saving as it is to spend.
Right.
So you've heard the 4% rule, the 5% rule. Okay.
Mhm.
So, those rules, I like to tell people, are not linear. You don't do the 4% rule all your life. So when you retire, you may end up spending 6% the first 10 years,
10 years.
Right.
15 years, and then you'll taper back down. But financially, I would say make enough money, have enough money so that, especially if you're in investments, if the market were to crash, inflation goes out of control, are you still okay?
Yeah.
And if you can say yes, I'm okay, then it's a good time to retire.
Mhm.
If the answer is no, but you still want to retire, you got to ask yourself, am I willing to do some other type of work?
Right.
And if you're willing to do some other type of work, are you okay with not being the whatever you were, the boss in charge or whatever
Right.
you were? You guys, am I okay to do something less than what I was
Definitely.
doing before? And is that gonna hurt my ego?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you lived in France and you want to become like the doorman at a nice store, who cares? You can go sell retail at Louis Vuitton.
Right.
And
Mhm.
you're not worried about your title. You're just making extra money to help you out.
Mm-hmm.
But you also got to realize whatever country you go to, you got to find out, can you work?
Right.
And if you
Mhm.
can work, what does that mean from a tax perspective?
Right.
But I'd really say I think you got to really think about, write it down, be very planful about it. Don't
Mm-hmm.
walk into it like um, it needs to be an exercise.
Right.
It can't be spontaneity that drives you. You have to be very, very planful about it. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do international living, you have to be even more, as you guys know, you have to be even more planful. If you plan on staying in your hometown, I think you got to really think about what are you going to do. Right now
Mm-hmm.
you have a purpose. If today I met some friends for lunch, after lunch I walked down to the Seine, I went to the Louvre, had my coffee, I went and saw an exhibit, I came back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
If I was in Orlando, what could I do? I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do from day to day.
Right.
So I think you really got to figure out how are you going to spend that time once you retire,
Yep.
because it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to always be full of adventure, and
Right.
you got to be very okay, especially if you're listening to this podcast and you're probably the type of person that's aggressive, you're planning, you want to do stuff. So you want to be productive. And,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to feel good without being productive. I mean, like, so, hey, I'll watch a series of Netflix without worrying about, I mean,
Right. Right.
it's,
Right.
it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, find what you really are interested in doing and dig into it so you can get a plan because you need to be the biggest thing I think for people when they retire, what I've read is that people want to feel worthy. They want to feel that
Right.
they have still a meaningful, purposeful life.
Mm-hmm.
And people say it all the time. I don't need to be perfect, so I can just hang out. But that's not true. That will
Right.
quickly come to an end after a year or two.
Right, right. And especially retiring early, if you've got 30, 35, 40 years ahead of you, it's like, Bill Perkins in his book Die with Zero talks about the stages. You have go go, slow go, and no go years. And you got to make a plan for those go go years as far as like, what are you going to do? Because you still hopefully, prayerfully have the activity and the mental faculties, the physical faculties to do stuff. But you're right, are you really playing golf every day for the next
Right,
30 years?
right,
Or I'm going to travel the world. Well, even that needs a plan. So
right.
I love what you said about making sure that you're running towards something as opposed to just running away from it. And I hear basically it's planning and intention.
Exactly. You nailed it.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I
So
think we are at our
what?
last question.
Yep. Hit it.
So, what's next for you, Djuan? What are you going to do with
Ah,
the rest of your life? Or what's
I
the
know,
next
right?
adventure?
Right.
What are you getting into?
Uh, well, even though I do all this other stuff, about 2 years ago, I started working with a friend of mine, and we are inventors now. So
Mm.
Okay.
we invented a product that is the closest similar thing is the Ring doorbell.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're
Mm-hmm.
building a home security system, which hopefully, wish me luck in the next 2 months. We filed our patent for it 2 years
Okay.
Nice.
ago.
Uh-huh.
So we're hoping to be patent. And
Very cool.
we're, one thing I don't want to do is, run another company. So the idea is it's an innovation company. So we're going to build products and then sell
Sell
off
it.
the
Gotcha.
IP, hopefully.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna hopefully before this year is out, I'm working with a guy who we're gonna start our own podcast
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
called Expedition Leadership. So it's about parallels between going on an expedition and leadership and what are the things that are very similar about the two and things that are very different, but really kind of forge the thing that I'm probably most known for is like my crazy exploits, but also what is it like to be a Disney executive, or what is it like to be a leader
Hmm.
in these
Hmm.
days.
Hmm.
And then I've started writing a book, so hopefully
Okay. That's
by
what
the
I
end
was
of the
going to ask.
year,
Where's the
yeah,
book?
yeah, called
Hmm.
the working title now is Fearless by Design. So
Okay.
we'll see. So hopefully within the next year, some of this stuff will start to materialize. But like I said, like first 2.5 years, I didn't do anything. I mean, it's like you don't have to have all the answers,
Right.
and that's
Right.
probably another thing. You have to. I think the financial piece, you don't have to be overly perfect, but you also uh, you have to be, do you want to end up going back to work full time?
Right.
Right.
So
Right.
you got to, and my answer might be right. And the early you retire, like if you retired at 50 or 55 and 5 years until you're like, shoot, I don't want to, you can go back to work. The
Right.
Right.
problem is when you get to be 65 and you retire,
Right.
and then you retire for 5 years and realize I don't like retirement. Well, you can't go back to work at
Right.
70. It's
Right.
like, so the earlier you retire, the more options you have, but at the same time, you have to be a lot more planful about it.
Right. Intentional, because you've got longer
Intentional.
runway to kind of plan
Yeah,
for.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And in that runway, I think, we live in this world where everything is both what it is and what it's not. So that
Right.
runway is long, but
Mhm.
it's not very long.
Right.
Like I've retired 5 years ago and I'm 60. How's that even possible? Like I'm already an old man, like at 60 years old. But everyone's like, oh, you retired too early. But 5 years went by like that.
Right.
Hmm.
So the
Right.
next 5 years will go by even faster.
Right.
And, I've seen the healthiest of people
Yeah.
slow down at 80.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, what I thought was, my goal was I have as many years outside of retirement as I did working. So I worked for 33 years.
Uh-huh.
I want to be having fun for 33 more years. So I got to be
Right.
88. I got to get to 88, Then I reach that goal. A good 88. I don't want to be like on machines, but like I still
Right.
want to run a marathon and Antarctica again.
Right.
So you have to be, very planful and purposeful about those things. So
Yeah,
Wow.
I'll never forget. And this was at Disney. One of the things your dad said to a group of cast members, that's an employee for anybody who's not worked at Disney. Any employee at Disney is a
Cast
cast member.
member. Right.
But one of
yes.
the things he said was, as an employee, you either get to pick your expiry date or the company gets to pick your
Yeah.
expiry date. And that always stuck with me.
Yeah.
He,
So I'm
he
like,
said that.
ooh,
Everybody
oh my.
has an expiration
He
date.
said,
Oh,
Right.
you
my
may
dad tells
choose
me
it or
that.
maybe he
Oh,
tells employees.
imagine living with a guy who tells you that all the time. All right,
So,
son, that's good. I'm glad you climbed that mountain, but what else,
right.
Yeah, that was over 25 years
Yeah.
ago, and we
That's
still remember
funny.
it.
So
Yeah.
you picked your expiry date.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know,
But you planned it. You
but you
planned
That's
it.
planned it.
his, that's
Yes.
his, that's his
Well,
phrase.
yep.
Yep. Yep.
Well, Djuan, this has been wonderful. We appreciate the time from across the pond, the ocean.
Yes.
And
Hopefully we get to visit one day where
I
we
know
can go
we're
get
gonna be
some.
putting our names
Seriously.
on that list to come, hang out with you at some point. We're gonna make it after we're doing our Latin America. We in our
Yeah,
Latin
dude.
America
Yeah,
bag
yeah, yeah.
right
Get your
now.
Latin
But
American down.
yeah, I've never been to Europe, so
Wow. Oh,
You've been to
yes.
Greece.
I've been to Greece.
You've been to
Thank you.
Greece.
I was like, but you know
It
what?
was a cruise though. We didn't get to spend.
But I haven't
Yeah.
been to England and Jice has been to London. So yeah, Paris is on the list. So
Portugal too.
yeah, Portugal, Spain, all of it.
I'll
So
I'll be your tour guide. So look
we
me
will
up.
take that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. And now we got a swath of witnesses to say that. So
Yeah.
yes, we will definitely make that happen. But we appreciate you. I'm sure our viewers, listeners appreciate this. Quench crew, sound off in the comments if you have anything to say as far as any comments this really resonate with you. Is Europe on your list for travel or for retirement? Let us know in the comments. And as always, please like, share, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And anything else?
That's it.
All right. Well, Quench crew, we're signing off. We'll see you on the next GenX Quench video.
I guess we should say instead of adios, au revoir.
Au revoir.
Oh, there you go. Au revoir.
All right.
A bientôt.
Bye.